Hi, and welcome to the Idaho Food Bank Satellite Partner Volunteer Coordination Training Module. The goal of this training is to help you develop an understanding of effective ways to recruit, train, retain, and recognize volunteers, how to maintain a successful volunteer experience, and how to communicate the gold standards to your volunteers. By the end of this training, we hope that you have an understanding of how you can work with volunteers as part of your program. During this session, we will discuss components of effectively managing a Cooking Matters volunteer program, covering all of the stages of working with these volunteers. This will include recruitment, training, ways to give volunteers recognition for their efforts, and ideas how to retain your volunteer base. Let's start with volunteer recruitment. Because of the unique program model used by Cooking Matters, it is important that we recruit specialized volunteers from culinary and nutrition communities. We will provide you with job descriptions that you can use when recruiting volunteers, but being specific about what you expect from your volunteers will help you find volunteers who are a good fit for your program and in turn help the volunteer choose the opportunity that is right for them. Knowing what your volunteer expects from Cooking Matters can eliminate miscommunications and increase volunteer satisfaction. Let's discuss the building blocks for a successful recruitment strategy, starting with the roles that volunteers can play within your program. Chef instructors teach participants how to cook healthy, low-cost foods using the lesson plans and recipes for each class provided by the Cooking Matters curriculum. Nutrition instructors teach how to make healthy choices using the lesson plans provided in the Cooking Matters curricula. Class assistants and shoppers help facilitate classes by assisting with on-site or off-site class preparation and implementation. Duties may include shopping for food, managing class materials, helping with setup and cleanup, and working with course participants as needed. Class managers can help keep harder to manage classes focused and moving forward. It can be helpful to recruit teachers or those within the classroom, group management, and discipline skills for this role if you choose to include a class manager in your courses. Having clear descriptions of the available volunteer positions are essential for meeting and managing volunteer expectations. The Idaho Food Bank will provide you with the volunteer role descriptions and volunteer applications for your organization to use. Another important aspect of successfully recruiting sustainable volunteers is to clearly communicate the benefits of Cooking Matters, its unique program model, distinctive volunteer needs, and significant program impact so that prospective volunteers have an understanding of the program and its needs. The key to recruiting great volunteers is asking the right questions. People have different motivations for volunteering. Some want to make a difference, while others may need to fulfill a requirement. Understanding their motivation can help you determine fit and placement, while helping them to reflect on if their needs will be met working with you. Clearly communicate expectations to volunteers and ask them what they expect from working with you. Some ideal characteristics of Cooking Matters volunteers are people who are passionate about the work, motivated, experts in their subject, organized, and flexible. A selection of recruitment tools found on the Idaho Food Bank Cooking Matters Satellite Partner website will be available for your use. We will discuss resources in more depth later on, but I encourage you to start thinking about what resources you have and are available for you in your community. When recruiting volunteers, don't forget to use the resources that may already be available to you. It may be helpful to ask yourself these questions. Who leads and is involved in the recruitment? What external partnerships exist to facilitate outreach? And what are current competing demands for time and resources affecting volunteer recruitment? Now that we have established the building blocks, let's talk about where to find those volunteers. What percentage of people, when asked personally to volunteer, usually say yes? 71% of people asked to volunteer did. Don't rely solely on volunteers reaching out to you. As evidenced from the last slide, the majority of people, when asked to volunteer, are willing to do so. Here are some suggested ways to ask those potential volunteers. Try to incentivize the ask, do a group ask, or ask via social media. Now we will go into more depth about finding and recruiting those potential Cooking Matters volunteers. Here are some out-of-the-box recruiting ideas. Hold a booth at a farmer's market, try networking and presentations with professional associations such as the American Culinary Federation or the Idaho Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics. Try reaching out to local culinary schools or nutrition programs. Try a community newsletter. Look into dining services at nursing homes, child care centers, local colleges and universities. Or you can also look into local restaurants for chefs. Some great places to find nutrition education instructors include fitness centers, Weight Watchers, diet and health centers, health food stores, school nurses, cafeteria staff, hospitals, clinics, 4-H clubs, work-study students. Other ways to recruit specialized volunteers include establishing connections with schools, businesses, professional groups, and other organizations specifically related to your targeted volunteer base. Sifting for the right fit. Not every volunteer interested in Cooking Matters is qualified or a good fit for the program. Their first contact with your program is a good way to find out a bit more about the volunteer. Here are some questions to think about asking. How did you hear about Cooking Matters? What is your interest in our program? How would you like to volunteer for our program? And what is your culinary, nutrition, or food background? Digging deeper. Steps prospective volunteers should take before committing. Have them attend an orientation. Look on the Share a Strength in Cooking Matters website for more information and clarification. Have them fill out a volunteer application. And if it can be arranged, ask volunteers to talk with an experienced volunteer. Consider these questions to help determine if your potential volunteer is a good fit for the Cooking Matters program. Will they be able to help engage participants? Would they be better in a different role? Do they need extra time to build up experience? Would they be a benefit to helping the organization rather than being a course volunteer? Now that you've found some great volunteers, it's time to give them a great orientation. Once you have potential volunteers lined up, it is a good idea to host a group volunteer orientation. Most agencies have found group orientations to be a good way to introduce the program and clearly explain expectations. Prior to the initial in-person training to familiarize volunteers with Cooking Matters, you may choose to introduce the program with some videos online. Here are some links that you can find to be useful to find those videos. Volunteer orientation. When, where, and how long? When? Prepare to have your volunteer team oriented at least 2 weeks prior to the start of the course that they will be volunteering for. Where? Conduct volunteer orientation at a location suitable for volunteers. Keep in mind, if you're using a PowerPoint, to have internet access or access to a computer. Preparing your volunteers. Provide an orientation for interested volunteers and a more complete training for committed volunteers. If suitable to the situation, use the Cooking Matters Volunteer Orientation PowerPoint. By using this PowerPoint as a part of your volunteer training protocol, it helps to ensure that all Cooking Matters volunteers have the same basic understanding of the program. This template can be adjusted to suit your program's needs, but must include the Cooking Matters program gold standards suggested content. Sign volunteers up to shadow a class so they can experience the work firsthand. This PowerPoint will be provided to you on the Idaho Food Bank Cooking Matters Satellite Partner website. It is beneficial to provide ongoing training to volunteers. Ongoing training creates a shared understanding of our work by familiarizing volunteers with the mission, vision, rules, and best practices related to our work. In addition, it refreshes and enhances their knowledge and keeps them updated on changes, enhancements, and new opportunities. It also helps volunteers to feel prepared by increasing confidence and morale. And higher morale leads to greater willingness to contribute to the success of the program. In addition, ongoing volunteer training helps to promote gold standard programming that empowers families with the skills, knowledge, and confidence to prepare healthy and affordable meals. Now let's take a look at the gold standards we have set for our volunteers. Cooking Matters has a list of key behaviors and actions, or what we call gold standards, that should take place within each class in order to make the experience as meaningful as possible for participants. Partners are responsible for preparing volunteers to interact with participants, demonstrate subject expertise in classroom leadership, deliver course content, and use appropriate delivery methods. The Cooking Matters gold standards are based on the Cooking Matters philosophy that a learner-centered education has great impact and affects long-lasting behavior change, and each standard has a set of key behaviors and actions that, if followed, can make your courses as meaningful as possible for course participants. We will review the Cooking Matters gold standards for volunteers on the next 4 slides. When interacting with participants, the volunteer should have all the resources necessary to provide a welcoming environment. Use the tool itself and the examples provided to create a discussion around the standards. They should help demonstrate respect and cultural sensitivity, as well as provide suggestions to help manage inappropriate classroom behaviors. As a coordinator, make sure your volunteers have knowledge of the subject and that they are prepared for class each week. Although they should keep class on schedule, you and your partners need to play a role in managing this. Gold standards must always be used when delivering course content. All materials have been provided and should be discussed with participants to ensure a positive experience for your participants regarding healthy eating, food resource management, cooking and meal preparation, and food and kitchen safety. Using appropriate delivery methods will ensure that the participants can get the most out of each class. Have participants cook and eat together. Ask participants open-ended questions to encourage discussion. Team teach with your co-instructors to guide discussion. And build on content from the previous weeks. We have gone over recruitment and orientation for our volunteers, but now that we've got them, how do we keep them? Incentives, peer groups, and experiences are probably some of the reasons that you may have volunteered in the past. Reflect on these reasons and then consider what you will offer to volunteers in order to retain them. An effective volunteer program puts effort not only into recruiting and training volunteers, but into retaining them as well. These are some of the key reasons our volunteers have continued to work with Cooking Matters. Notice, communication is a key factor in helping participants feel comfortable, knowledgeable, and connected. Providing our volunteers opportunities for social engagement and growth is important as well, and it is also important that they feel recognized in some meaningful ways. We know that these are key retention factors for Cooking Matters volunteers because of the results of the Cooking Matters End of Course survey for volunteers. Each volunteer should complete the end of class volunteer survey at the conclusion of each course. Completing the survey allows volunteers to provide feedback, and it helps us to understand volunteers' perspectives on working with Cooking Matters. The survey is anonymous and convenient and should be completed within 1 week of the course end date. Finally, we will talk about what Share Our Strength does to recognize volunteers and some ideas that you can use at a local level to recognize volunteers in your program. These components of the volunteer process go hand in hand. Recognizing your volunteers is an important step in retaining them for continued commitment. Usually, volunteers want to continue to serve a program where they feel valued and feel that what they are contributing to is important. Here are some of the milestones we use. At the end of the first course, we provide a reusable grocery bag. At week 5, we provide a Share Our Strength pin. Notice after course 10, the participant will receive a chef apron, and after their 15th course, they are inducted into our Course Instructors Hall of Fame. It is important to recognize your volunteers on the local level as well. Don't underestimate the power of spoken and written word. It is becoming more apparent that acknowledgement through social media is something meaningful and appreciated by volunteers. Here are some helpful hints. Acknowledge each course with a handwritten thank you note. Acknowledge volunteers in your organization's newsletter or on social media. Host volunteer recognition events and mixers to show appreciation, encourage sharing, and build relations among volunteers. Establish a relationship with a houseware supplier or other retailer who can donate stock to be used as recognition gifts for volunteers. Share quotes from the participant survey with volunteers so that they know that they made an impact. Highlight participants' positive feedback about the class results to your volunteers so they can see the impact of their contribution. Send a personal thank you phone call from someone higher up in your organization to the volunteer. Provide a letter of recognition to the volunteer's place of employment or professional organization. Or create and provide a certificate of appreciation. Hosting volunteer recognition events and mixers show appreciation, encourage sharing, and build relations among volunteers. Volunteer voice from the kitchen. Volunteering for Cooking Matters gives me a hands-on way to get involved in the community where I live and work. It lets me share what I know best, which is cooking, with people in need. This concludes the Volunteer Coordination module. Thank you for listening in. We hope this is beneficial moving forward in working with your volunteers.